All right, everybody. Hope you got a cup of coffee here. We're here to get your Celtics weekend started off right. We are going to jump into talking about Peyton Pritchard and the Celtics bench today and their impact across the first 5 games, what to look for going forward. Plus, don't forget, tomorrow night, Bleacher Report. We will be live after the Celtics Hornets game. So make sure that you guys tune in. We'll talk about both the Friday night and Saturday night game live on the Bleacher Report app. Go ahead and download that. And then on this show, Giannis on the move. I don't know, man. Bucks ain't looking so good. We're gonna check in with the Bucks and the Giannis rumors that are out there. This is a live Friday morning recording here of Green with Envy. You guys know the deal. Let's lock in. What up, what up, what up? Welcome into another edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will. We're checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, the baby-faced co-host of the podcast, my best friend co-host and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. And Greg, I know that you dressed up for Halloween. I'm assuming that is what has to do with this baby-faced 35-year-old male that I have looking across at me right now, which I'm not gonna lie, I saw your Halloween photograph, went over my head, so you have to explain that to me. But the baby faceness is it's a little startling here in the morning.
I was wondering if it was freaking you out a little bit. I
A
could see
little bit.
I
You
I could
you
see
were
you
already
just,
having
like,
technical
wanting to address
difficulties
it.
getting set up, so I didn't want to bring it up in the moment. And so I was just, but in my head, I was like, you look like you're. Well, we've gone through some shit. So the time when you were so there was this one time when Greg and I were living together, and he had an allergic reaction in the middle of the night. It's not quite that, but if you take away he had bug eyes. Basically, his eyes were shut and they were popping out of his head from drinking some soy milk in the middle of the night. So learned Greg should not drink soy milk, very, very allergic. And he had a massive glass, I think 2 actually. So learned that that's not something that should be in his diet. But right now it's that feeling without the bug eyes is kind of what I'm getting to.
Yeah, it's pretty strange. So I've had a goatee for, I don't know, the last 8 to 10 years, I would say. Probably since I was like
At least
25.
some version of facial hair. You've started to have something on your face for the last, like you said, like 8 years or so.
Yeah. And I think I've fully shaved my face twice. And it was this Halloween for my costume and 2 Halloweens ago for my costume. And that was the only time. And Danielle, my fiance and baby mama, she hates when I shave my face. So yesterday I dressed up as Zuko from Avatar Last Airbender. So baby James was Aang, Danielle was Katara. Costumes just on point. We looked great.
Yep.
Go check out. We'll post a picture of me as Zuko so you can kind of check it out. But Zuko is, he's a teenage kid on the show, and I needed to shave my face. And yesterday I had my facial hair and I was about to go to work, and I was like, if I'm gonna commit to this, I've got like the Zuko, he has like a burn on his eye. So I had like the makeup going, but then I had the facial hair and I felt like it just kind of took away from the actual look of the character. So I went to the bathroom with my razor, and Danielle was like, "Are you shaving your face?" And I was like, "I got to do it. I got to do it." She was furious. She was furious. And she calls me Craig. Whenever I shave my face, I transform from Greg to Craig. So Craig in the building today, Craig Manakis reporting for duty.
I will say I appreciate the commitment. I didn't dress up for Halloween, so I can't speak to anything. I sit at home. To be fair, I sit at home, remote work, just me and my dog Taco, and we had the gardener here yesterday. Like, who was I dressing up for? So we didn't go out. But I will shout out my wife Lorena. She won a contest at her work for dressing up as Ray Gun Barbie. So Ray Gun, of course, of the famous Australian breakdancing fame, but Barbie themed, and she actually won one of the sections at her contest. Yeah, she
Can I
killed it.
ask
She
you
killed it.
something? Did you just casually drop that you have a gardener?
Yeah, every guy that comes by and does some like work, dude. I got a yard that I don't know how to maintain. I'm not a man's man. I don't know how to do a lot of stuff. Like there's things that this house would not look like this house would look really bad if I was doing everything myself. So I do have a guy that comes by like once. I call him when there's little things that I do to try to maintain it are no longer going to work. We have such massive trees, dude. I can't keep up with all the leaves that
Yeah,
come
yeah.
down here.
Got to
So
get an arborist.
I have had an arborist come by to like cut the branches. I think I might have to do it again this year. I think it's every 2 years. I need to get someone to come by and cut some of the branches. So, yeah. So this house takes a little bit of maintenance. So I do have a guy that comes. Shout out to my man Diego. Comes by probably once every 6 weeks, every 2 months, something like that. So it's not that regular of a thing. But anyway, so it was just us. So I had no one to dress up for. But I was gonna say, I appreciate that you were 90% there and just decided you couldn't leave that 10% untamed, and then went and
Danielle's
shaved
so
and did what
mad,
you did.
dude. She's so mad. And for those of you that are listening live, thanks for hanging with us here as we will get to basketball. For those of you that are listening on the pod, I'll make sure as producer Craig will make sure in the audio, in the notes, in the show notes, I'll put the timestamp when the basketball conversation actually starts. So that you can just skip ahead if you don't want to hear us talking however long we're going to talk this morning about Halloween and facial hair and how Will is bougie and has a gardener. But I do want to ask you just about Halloween. So I know your neighborhood, it's kind of hit or miss with some things that happen. You had recently had a standoff with your neighbor, with the police outside your neighbor's house recently. There's a hit and run on a mailbox, or like somebody drove into somebody's
Oh,
house.
someone took out my mailbox and then drove into a house down the street. Yep, that was a
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. You got loose dogs roaming the neighborhood. So you got a lot of
Constantly.
stuff going on. Your house is beautiful, but what was Halloween like? Did you guys hand out candy, anything like that?
So we bought some candy, but I don't know if you remember what happened at our house last year for Halloween.
I don't.
So last year we were going to at some point sit outside and just see if anybody came by. But in the meantime, while we weren't outside, we put a bucket of candy outside for people to stop by and
For
grab
the stray
some.
dogs.
Or the stray dogs, right? So this kind of gets to the point. So I go outside because we had heard Taco, our dog, react to like somebody come up to the door. So we were like, all right, we know at least one person or one family, whatever, has come by. So as we were going to, or maybe I was going somewhere, I can't remember the exact scenario, but anyways, I was going to go see how much candy was left in the bucket. Open the door, bucket's gone. They didn't just take the candy; they took the whole bucket. The whole bucket was gone. I was robbed of my bucket last Halloween. So this year we bought some candy and we didn't have any decorations. Like it's just been a really busy month over here for us. And so like we actually forgot. So I know we're doing for those listening, me and my wife are doing kind of like a two-part wedding thing. So we did like the courthouse over the summer, and we have another like fuller wedding with family and friends that's coming up in the spring. But we literally forgot like our year anniversary of getting engaged. We were on the couch like getting ready to go to bed and like, hey, do you know we got engaged a year ago? That was a
I
couple
love
couple
that.
weeks ago. So this whole month, just like we didn't decorate the house, we didn't really do much. So we bought some candy just in case, and now we just have a bunch of candy. But we are hosting an event for some friends on Sunday, so we'll have candy is the moral of the story. But that was about it. Anything over at your house last night?
Well, Daryl and Kaylin came over from Black Sheep, so we were just hanging out in the driveway, handing out candy with Baby Yang, and I just wanted to point out that there are a couple people that came, completely out of costume, teenagers expecting to get candy. So
Yeah, no, that's a no go.
we had to put them to a test. I was like, listen, man, you're here, you want candy, you're not like out there causing trouble. So I appreciate it. I'm gonna have to test you on some shit. So I was like, if you can name all of the characters that we are, I'll give you a piece of candy. So I was testing people like that, and he was able to one of them was able to say that, oh, that's Last Airbender. I was like, yep, all right, you get a piece of candy. But there was one kid that literally dressed up as like I don't know, like an 8-foot penis, and he was just like walking through the neighborhood dressed up as a penis. And I was like, man, this is like a family friendly holiday. Like, why are you dressing
Yeah.
up as a 8-foot dick, man?
That's
Like,
that's like a it's like if there's a high school party, like either like in the woods or like at let's say somebody's parents aren't home or something. That's when you dress up as a penis, right? Like
yeah,
or a college party. Like that's go ahead and dress up as a penis there. You don't dress up as a penis and then walk around and ask adults to give you candy. That's ridiculous.
it was strange. It was strange. Daryl appreciated it because he's a savage. But so Daryl gave them candy. But one costume that I did really like, this, I don't know, she's probably like 5 or 6 years old. She was dressed up as the girl from Clueless, and I was like, how do you know Clueless? Like, that's cool that you know that character. And then let's see, any other characters that I appreciated. No, but one little kid did say, she was probably like 2 or 3 years old, did say trick or treat, smell my feet, and I thought that was funny because I just haven't heard that in so long.
Hey, gotta have some traditions that live on, right? So, yeah, happy belated Halloween to everybody out there. Hopefully, you guys are settling up with some coffee. If you went out last night, maybe you're a little hungover, and you decided, hey, I still want to get my Celtics fix. We appreciate anybody that is joining us right now. And as Greg said, we're gonna get to some basketball talk. So let's do that. Right now, Celtics are coming off their first loss of the season in overtime to the Indiana Pacers the other night. And one of the things that really stood out in this game, Greg, was, it seemed like Joe Mazzulla was on the precipice, which he rarely does, of about to throw the towel in. And really, there was a Jaylen Brown and all bench lineup that kind of kept the Celtics hanging around, giving them just enough life, enough energy, enough juice. And eventually, Derek White and Jason Tatum checked back in with about 5 minutes left. But Neemias Queta and Peyton Pritchard wrote it out all the way through the fourth quarter and into overtime. So I think now, being 5 games in, it's a good time for us to kind of assess. And shout out to our guy Rui in the chat here. And we're going to talk about your boy Neemias Queta here, the man from Portugal. We're going to talk about him here in just a minute. But I think it's a good time for us to take a look at the Celtics bench in general. And Greg, of course, we've talked about Peyton Pritchard. The Sixth Man of the Year campaign has been launched, and so far through 5 games, very, very real campaign. Like it's a real thing. The man is shooting the lights out of the ball. But let's talk about this bench as a whole. Do you want to start with Pritchard because he does seem to be the leader of that, or do you want to go someplace else and circle back to Peyton?
Yeah, let's start with Pritchard. I thought it was really interesting to see Missoula just stick with him in in over Drew Holiday. Obviously, Peyton was balling, so you kind of want to just ride it out, but to not go back to Drew at any point, I thought was pretty interesting. Did you see? I didn't see any of the post game. Did Joe talk about not going to Drew?
I did not catch that either, so I
Okay.
did not see any comments on that. But one thing that did stick out to me was, number one, it's I love that Joe is confident enough in his relationship with Drew, with Al, to be able to. I don't even want to call it benching them. He just really went with what was working, right? He went with the hot
Hmm.
hands
Yeah.
of what was working in that game, and ultimately, this is, and I don't think this probably at the 5th game mark was really factoring into Joe's decision, but long term, I love the idea that we were keeping unnecessary miles off of Drew Holiday and Al Horford,
Yeah.
right? Like I
Especially in
like I
such a hectic game with the Pacers.
right. The pace the Pacers play at, and it's just whether or not that comeback was going to be made, it probably wasn't going to be worth it for Al to play 38 minutes in that game, right? It wasn't going to be worth it for Drew Holiday to play. If Drew Holiday can play 24 minutes in a game and then we have a back-to-back coming up in Charlotte, like, good. Like that actually works out well. And so I like the fact that Joe's confident enough, even if that's just an accidental, silver lining of what this was, that he can do that with this team. And speaking specifically just on Pritchard, man, you can see we talked a lot about the weight being lifted off of the Jays and
Hmm.
other players. You can see it with Peyton Pritchard. I mean, you look back at the beginning of last year. Remember how much he struggled the first couple of games last year just to get it going, and that was coming off the first year with Joe, where his place on the team was so up and down. He was catching DNPs quite a bit and just really wasn't sure where to fit in. Think about that to where we are now, and he's playing basically like 27, 28 minutes a game. He's fourth in
Yeah.
the team in field goal attempts. He's second in 3-point attempts. He's seventh in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game is where Peyton Pritchard's
That's
at right
amazing.
now. He's playing 28 minutes a game. Like it's incredible to see that. And you can see it in those transition pull-ups that Peyton Pritchard is now making a staple of his game. Uh, those are clearly something that Joe has empowered him to do, and it's really cool to see Pritchard and Missoula, and if you track their evolution, where they're at
Mhm.
today as player coach, it's great to see how much trust Joe now has in Pritchard at all times.
Yeah, because at the beginning of last year, he was kind of debuting for a real role with the team. He was auditioning, and I think with with Pritchard, the biggest thing, you obviously spoke to the confidence. He's always been a confident player, but he's been empowered to, unleash that confidence, especially from three, as you just mentioned, all those stats. And he, when he came onto the scene as a rookie before he hurt his knee, we were talking then about like, oh man, like, is this guy gonna play Marcus Smart off the court? Like, Marcus Smart got to be careful because he just has like a nose for the ball. The offensive rebounds that he gets, just his ability to guard. I've always compared him to kind of Fred VanVleet. I thought that was like the peak of what he could become, and like right
You
now
and
he's
Noah Dalzell still got a little bit of hope that he's got fringe all-star potential. That's one of her big takes as well.
okay. I like that. Yeah, I've just always seen him as that level of player. He's so talented. He can shoot the shit out of the ball, and he's a dog, man. He just like lives to hoop. And I just love that, as you mentioned, we're keeping those miles off of Al Horford, off of Drew Holiday in this case with Pritchard. And the more that Pritchard is able to kind of develop chemistry with the main guys, eventually at some point, the Celtics are gonna have to move off of Drew Holiday, Kristaps Porzingis, right? So like you're also looking into the future with Pritchard as to what is he going to be able to do when he's elevated into an inevitable starting role, because I think that's going to happen at some point on his 3 or 4 year extension that he got with the Celtics. So I'm
Yeah.
excited to see this out of Pritchard. He's just a fun guy to root for. As he mentioned, in one of his post games recently, he's like, I think people resonate with me because they can relate to me. I'm not the most athletic guy. I look like a very normal person. I'm 6'1", and it's just cool to see someone like that elevate his game to the point where he's getting talked about on national podcasts. He's getting talked about on ESPN and stuff like that. So it's really cool.
Did you catch his latest T-shirt with him, Luke, and Sam? Tres Leches.
That's great.
It's
That's great.
pretty good.
My cousin Jeff, shout out to Jeff Moy. He actually hit me up and he was telling me that we need to create a Peyton Pritchard buzzer beater shirt. So if
Mm.
anybody has any design ideas, I have a design idea that I want to pitch to you, but I don't want anyone to steal it. So I'm not going to say it on the air, but if you are in our Discord or if you're following along live and if you've got any Peyton Pritchard t-shirt ideas, send them along and we'll see if we can make it happen.
I like it. It's the Pritching hour, and that last point you made. It's one that we've brought up before, right? The inevitable CBA squeeze that there's a good chance, whether it's next year or the year after, the Peyton Pritchard just is the straight up starting point guard here, with likely Drew Holiday potentially not being here just for financial reasons. And you think about that closing lineup with Kada, right? Like Al Horford is getting older. Kristaps Porzingis, same thing, might be part of that financial squeeze. That might be in 2 years. That could have been just a normal game for the Celtics closing out with that lineup of Pritchard, White, the Jays, and Neemias Queta. That might exactly be what it looks like come 2026, 2027. So that is interesting to kind of think about it from that perspective. But with that, let's talk a little bit about the big man rotation and what
Mhm.
that's looked like. This game against Indiana, some really true extended Neemias Queta minutes with other starters out there. And like we said, Joe loved what he saw out of Queta. Queta was a big part of the Celtics making that comeback, especially when Indiana basically had to go centerless. This was a lineup that was created for Queta to be able to have an impact. I think in 13 minutes, he had about 4 offensive rebounds, I think it was. So, in about 14 minutes, he had 4 offensive rebounds, 9 rebounds total. So really a huge impact, plus 18 in just under 14 minutes for Neemias Queta in that game. But Greg, I think the center position is in general where we can go here, but definitely Neemias Queta was a big presence in that Indiana game.
Yeah, and Luke got his opportunity the first 3 quarters. Just his sheer size, I think, was giving Indiana a little bit of issues on the glass. Like I think Luke got to the free throw line like 6 or 7 times in that game.
7 offensive rebounds for him as well.
Yeah, so Luke was also a problem for Indiana. He just like doesn't have that level of explosiveness that was necessary in order to finish around the rim or like really just cause Indiana to panic a little bit. And I think that's what Kada brought to the table. And then we've said this before on the pod, but in case you haven't heard this, I compare this to Daniel Tice and Robert Williams under Brad Stevens, right? Where Luke Cornett is to Daniel Tice as Neemias Queta is to Robert Williams early on, especially in that bubble season where everybody was kind of clamoring for a little bit more Rob Williams. But Brad Stevens just looked at Daniel Tice, and that was his safety blanket. And he was just like, you know what? I know Daniel Tice knows exactly what to do on both ends of the court. He's always going to be in the right position, so I'm going to stick with him because Rob, it's just too volatile in terms of what we can expect. But everybody was saying, especially when you think about what Bam Adebayo did to the Celtics in the bubble, we were just like, we need something else, some injection of life, some injection of athleticism just to size up a little bit. When you think back to that bubble team, we were so small. Daniel Tice is
Yeah,
6'7.5", 6'8", and Luke, although he is 7'3", or 7'1", whatever he is, he's just not that athletic, obviously. And when you put Queta onto the court, it just like injects this level of enthusiasm and life and athleticism that you just don't get amongst other members of the front court, right? So I
hmm
think with Queta, to see Joe have the wherewithal to know he needed to inject something else into the game, that was the moment where I saw growth out of Joe Mazzulla, and obviously Queta, who got shouted out by everybody in the post game. It was just really cool to see him kind of reach that level of impact on a game that against a team that the Celtics might need to see something like that in the playoffs.
for sure. And I think for me, like you said, it's great to see Kata getting the love that he deserved after that game and being a big catalyst for the comeback. But I think outside, when you look at the bigs on the Celtics roster, outside of Horford and KP, who are going to be who you look to in playoff games, ideally if they're going to be healthy, the beauty of what the Celtics have is versatility and that they have different looks from all three of their bigs, whether it's Tillman, who's going to be that more ground bound, thicker guy that they can utilize in certain situations, Cornette, who has this really high IQ and continuity with the team that, just by being, like you said, it's funny, I think you said he was 7'1", 7'3". I think he's listed at 7'2", so everything but the but his actual height. But you have Luke Cornette out there for his size and IQ, and then like you said, you have Queta, this guy who can come in with this energy, this enthusiasm, and here's the thing, I think part of the maturity of Queta was it didn't feel like this was an environment where it could get very chaotic. I don't think he played very chaotic. I think he played
Mm-mm.
much more under control in this game than we may have seen. Even the times where it's looked like, man, Queta's there's something to this guy. There's still usually a hint of chaos to it that you're like, I don't know how sustainable this is. And it felt very within himself in this moment. And that was great. And so I think this is the thing for me that it's going to happen because it's just what happens on Twitter after a game is I want more Queta when he has a good game. When Tillman has a good game, I want more Tillman. Why don't we have more Tillman? I want more Luke after he has a good game. And listen, it needs to be a rotation. This is a stable of bigs that the Celtics have.
Mm-hmm.
They need to utilize them when the moment's right. And that's why, Joe needs to kind of plug in like in different moments when it's okay. Al's not on the court. Any of these guys could get minutes, and I kind of got to figure out night to night who is the right matchup for whoever the opponent is, right? And that's how I think it should be. And I think that's a beautiful thing about the Celtics front court and what makes their front court sustainable with KP being out and with managing Al's minutes is that you do have three guys that are all providing different elements that will help you against different opponents. So I think that's one of the things to look out for. And then the last thing I will say is I think the one thing we know that doesn't work, Greg, Luke and Tillman together. That's got to be the one lineup that I feel like we can confidently retire. Shout out to our guy, Wayne Spooney, over at First of the Floor. I saw him tweet this out the other day, some on-off numbers with the bigs. And all of them are relatively sustainable, or some of them are very positive. The one that jumps out, Tillman and Cornette on the court together, minus 26, basically a minus 27 net rating when they're on the court. Defensive rating is a whopping 146. So yeah, that's 26 minutes of data, but I know we tried it a few times last year. I don't know what the data is on it from last season, but that's the one thing that I think we can safely say is probably not going to work for the Celtics.
Well, it doesn't work on paper and it doesn't work in reality. Like I don't even understand the thought behind it, to be honest with you. It just doesn't make any sense. If Tillman could shoot a little bit, or if Luke decided to shoot the three again at some point in his career, then maybe, but it's not happening.
Which by the way, thinking of that, were you listening to the ESPN broadcast on Wednesday?
No, I was not.
Okay, so Jay Billis was on the call for some reason. I know they usually sometimes do like a crossover thing, but anyways, Jay Billis was on the call,
Love Jay
and you could
Billis.
tell, yeah, Jay Billis is great, but you could tell he was using some of his college basketball knowledge because he was like talking about Luke Kornet and how great of an offensive rebounder he is, and he's like, and he can just pop out and shoot the three. I was like, Jay, he hasn't shot a three in like 4 years. Like that's not a thing anymore, man. I know when you watched him at Vanderbilt like 6 years ago, 7 years ago, yeah, that was a thing, but it's not a thing anymore. So that made me laugh because everyone has always wondered, is Luke ever going to shoot a three? I think that moment's passed.
For sure, for sure. I want to give another shout to our guy Rui. Thank you for rocking with us today, Rui. He says we must protect Al from for the playoffs. We need playoff Al healthy and KP. The culture that Joe has created is that all backup Celtics help each other, and yes, the vibes are immaculate. Love it. Yeah, and one of the things I was thinking about, Will, we're talking about like overreactions to preseason and whatnot. When we were like, should Luke Cornett be the starting center? And like
Right.
Al Horford came up because Al just didn't really play in the preseason, and Al came out and he looks phenomenal to start the season. I think we can kind of like push that off to the side for now. That Luke
Yeah, no,
Cornett should
Al
be
is
a
the
starting
starter,
center.
is the move. Like you can still keep his minutes down without removing him from the starting lineup. Yeah, Al's been great to start the season. There's absolutely no reason why you wouldn't have Al continuing to start. And we've seen, Luke has had some good moments. Luke's had some moments where it's like, okay, we got to look to another option here. So yeah, that's a great example of some preseason overreactions. Another guy on the bench I just wanted to bring up here quickly was Sam Hauser and Jordan Walsh. So let's talk about the wings. Let's transition and talk about the wings a little bit. I don't really have much on Hauser, just other than that back injury was a little bit weird as to what was going on there. But
Mm-hmm.
he's only played in 2 games this year. I think he'll be fine. Really enjoyed that 1-3 he hit from the G on the logo spot. Basically in transition, set himself up with the go-ahead pass as to just hit him right in the pocket, went right up with it. A little bit of a deeper range than I feel like we usually see from Sam Hauser on that shot. So it feels like in general that might be part of what the Celtics have looked to try to do as far as advantage ball, which is what Missoula ball is. Advantage ball is, hey, if
Mm-hmm.
we get more open shots and we can shoot it consistently from a deeper spot, then why not do it? That's an advantage.
Yeah.
And so that stood out to me, just the little extended range that Hauser showed on that one shot.
Yeah, and it is a little concerning with the back, because he said it's something he's been dealing with. And as someone who has a bad back, it's just like not fun, and you never know when you wake up what your back is gonna feel
Right.
like. I'll literally like feel great all day, and then I'll step wrong, and all of a sudden I can't move for a week. It's just you never know with a bad back.
I
But
think that's just called getting old as well.
yeah,
Like I think because like right now, same thing. I hurt my wrist in our men's league like 2 weeks ago, and it feels fine for like 90% of things I do. And then if I just have to flex it in the wrong way or do it like too quickly, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, that really hurts. I probably shouldn't be doing whatever it is that I'm doing, but everything else I've done today, completely fine, no issues. So I think that's also just parts of us getting old. For Sam, a little more concerned,
yeah.
a little younger than us, but
For
yeah,
sure. But I think the larger point with Sam Hauser being out is that Jordan Walsh got an opportunity, and that
right.
Joe Mazzulla, just like he was not afraid to put Neemias Queta in the game, he has been giving Jordan Walsh opportunity after opportunity early in the season, which I think is definitely going to pay dividends for his development as a role player on this team. But also just like to give Sam Hauser a break, to give Jaylen Brown a break, to give Jason Tatum a break, everybody that Jordan Walsh can kind of fill in for, because we're going to need to go back to the CBA, like we're going to need young pieces to be able to contribute. You look around the league, every team needs some young player to have a role on their team. And I think with Pritchard, geez,
How's
Boston accent came out
how's you
big time
doing?
there.
How's
The Hausa, Kata, and
guys
Walsh,
got
like
a
those are
how's
all all four young pieces that can definitely contribute for this team. And I think that's huge because we're definitely going to need that.
Yeah, it threw me off, man. That Hauser
Dude,
came out of
so
nowhere.
my I don't know what it is, but recently, I do know what it is. I do know what it is.
What is
So
it?
with baby James, we read Harry Potter to him, and I read
You
Harry
still
Potter,
doing it
and
in the Boston accent?
I still do it in the Boston accent.
Okay.
So like I feel I still like now I'm feeling more words come out in the Boston accent, which is cool. Like I kind of feel a bit of a phony that my accent, which was so strong growing up, is just gone. You know what I mean? So I'm reading Harry Potter in the Boston accent,
Harry
talking
Potter
shit,
from Gryffindor.
talking shit, and every once in a while I say things like "Howza."
Question for you, when you're reading Harry Potter in the Boston accent to James, do you ever self insert just a swear? Just because that's what
Oh
would
yeah,
would
yeah,
happen.
yeah,
Okay,
constantly,
okay,
constantly.
okay.
Yeah, and I'll drop a buddy in there. I'll drop a pal. So I definitely do some things.
Hey Ron, you think you're better than me? You think you're better than me?
I
Who do you
definitely do
think
some
you are,
things,
Ron?
changing the vernacular a little bit to sound a little bit more
Hermione,
Boston.
it's never gonna be me and you in the in the castle playing Xbox. We're never it's never gonna be us.
No, there's certain characters in Harry Potter that are like fucking hilarious as if you imagine them as people from Boston. Like Malfoy is fucking hysterical because he's so quick-witted and his jokes like he just insults the shit out of Ron all the time, and it's so funny. He just calls Ron poor all the time. And if you just like think of it as for no one's gonna get this except me and you and the people that went to our high school, but if you I kind of picture him as Ryan Foley. So it's
Yeah,
just
I can
like
see that.
that's who Malfoy is to me. And then Hagrid is just like a drunk dude down in Adam's Village. Like that's what I
Right,
think
right.
Hagrid is. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, he stumbles from the Erie pub over to China Sky to get some late night food.
Dude,
But yeah, I can see that.
Hagrid's on Hogwarts campus getting shit faced every night. And he's just like shit faced around the kids. He's like they show they
He's got
show
a
up
great gig.
multiple times to it. They show up multiple times to his hut, and he's literally just like face down in a bucket of water because he drank too much.
My man's got a good life. My man's got a good life. But yeah, back to our guy Jordan Walsh here. The impact he's had has been nice. Jordan Walsh.
Oh,
Jordan
we were
Walsh,
talking about
tremendous.
basketball? Yeah, I forgot there.
Yeah. Plus 10 versus the Bucks in his minutes, plus 6 against the Pacers. And to your point, what I loved is that Joe, Hauser came back in that Pacers game and he didn't take away Jordan Walsh's minutes, right? He still wanted Jordan Walsh to get more time. And this was kind of the bet once again of Lonnie Walker, who's now going to go overseas. This was kind of the bet of, hey, Jordan Walsh has proven enough to us that he at least deserves first crack at some rotation minutes, or at least those back end, those percent minutes that we keep talking about from last season. And I love to see Walsh getting a chance to grow in them. And I think you're going to see him if he continues to get these same, 8-10 minute stints with the real, not just garbage time minutes, but 8 to 10 minutes with the real rotation. That you're going to see his confidence continue to grow. And so definitely excited for what we've gotten out of Jordan Walsh so far in this little sample size. And we'll see what comes more. I would definitely expect as we play Charlotte, it's going to be a pretty athletic team. I would definitely expect over this weekend that we continue to see some more Jordan Walsh minutes.
I've been excited, watching Walsh play, man. He's definitely starting to make me feel better about my Iguodala comp. He's showing some more explosiveness. I just want to see him shoot the three with a little bit more confidence, and for guys
Mhm.
to empower him to shoot, just like they've
Yeah.
empowered other people on the roster to shoot. Like Tillman's letting it fly, and Jalen's looking for Tillman. So, get the ball to Jordan Walsh a little bit, let him see what he can do, and then the games where Tatum or Brown need to take a break, I want to see him elevated a little bit in his role and his responsibility.
Yeah, you can see at times there was a few times in the Indiana game where the Celtics kind of pushed it ahead, and he kind of did the okay. I got the ball over half court. Let me bring it back out and get to an adult, right? Let me
Yeah.
get the ball to an adult.
Well, there's funny
So
that I think it was in the Pacers game. We had a big steal. Sam Hauser got a steal, and then he looked ahead to Jordan Walsh, and he like threw the ball to Jordan Walsh instead of passing it to Tatum. And Walsh had just sprinted down the court. He was like, "There's no way someone's going to give me an outlet pass. Let me run to the corner." And the ball literally hit him on the back, and then
yeah, I saw
I
that.
think the Pacers ended up scoring off of that.
Yeah, so I think with Jordan Walsh, we'll see a little bit of those minor growing pains, but I like what we're seeing, and I'm excited for where it's going here down the stretch, or not down the stretch, but throughout the rest of the season here. So big things here for the Celtics and the bench. They're going to play a big role in what happens the rest of the season as the Celtics look to get rest for guys like Drew Holiday, like Al Horford, as they wait for Kristaps Porzingis to come back. So it's exciting to see the developments of that Celtics bench, and we will keep you guys tuned in here. We'll see what happens over the weekend in Charlotte. Once again, download the Bleacher Report app if you want to come check in with us after the game on Saturday night. Greg and I will be live on the Bleacher Report app. Last thing we want to talk about here before we sign off, Greg. We talked about the Bud. We did a podcast after the Celtics Bucks game. Hasn't got much better. They lose another one to the Memphis Grizzlies last night by 20 plus. A game in which the Grizzlies were missing 2 starters. No Marcus Smart, no Desmond Bane. Things not looking great earlier in the day.
Awesome, though.
What'd you say? Ja looked awesome? Yeah, Ja looked really good.
Did you see that alley-oop from his butt?
From his butt. It was awesome. To my guy, Santi. Yeah, I loved it. Santi Aldama's been balling out this season.
He's playing well. Well, real quick, before we talk about the Bucks, I do want to I was just like very quickly looking up some hilarious Draco Malfoy insults, and this one is just so funny. So, Neville Longbottom, right?
Of course, I don't read the books, but I've watched all the movies many times.
Okay, you got to read the books, dude. They're awesome. He's Longbottom. If brains were gold, you'd be poorer than Weasley, and that's saying something.
That is, I can picture Malfoy in a tracksuit saying that.
Yeah. Oh my God. Okay. What were we talking about? We were talking about Giannis.
So we're talking about Giannis. So Bucks not doing well. Giannis rumors have begun. There was a report from CBS Sports Bill Reiter. So here's the quote that I pulled from Bill Reiter over at CBS Sports. There's a rising sense of confidence that if things go badly in Milwaukee, that Giannis could be available for trade, would really force his way out of Milwaukee in the next year. Now, I think for a star, this is one of those situations where we can table the word star. Giannis is a superstar. Like, there's no debate. Like, that would feel shocking if this were to happen in season before the trade deadline. Like, things would have to continue on a really, really bad pace, I think, for it to happen in season. So my guess is this is more of probably things continue not to be great. They end up 6-7 seed, kind of like you predicted, but they don't make that conference finals run, right? Like, they end up out in the first round, losing to the Celtics or whoever it might be, the Knicks, whoever they end up playing. And then maybe in the off season. But it is intriguing because Giannis, man, this is a guy that would shake it up wherever it is that he could land. And in that same report, they did mention that it's seemingly Brooklyn, for whatever reason, just I guess being in New York, Brooklyn and Miami would be 2 places he's interested in. Doesn't mean that's where he has to go. And so there will certainly be no shortage of suitors for a guy like Giannis if he does hit the market. But it's kind of fast. It's one of those trades. It's always just fascinating to think about a guy like this. What do you get in return for Giannis if the Bucks ever do decide to make this move, or if they're forced into it because their level of play just doesn't get much better than where it's at right now?
What's your dream team just for basketball fit for Giannis? You don't even worry about like, can they make a trade for Giannis? Just where would you like to see him on what team?
I mean, so this is dream and also nightmare at the same time. OKC. I think OKC would just be a fascinating fit, and they can absolutely make it happen. Draft pick capital wise, I think I'd have to see what it would look like for salaries, because they still haven't paid Jalen Williams and Chet Holmgren. So obviously the Bucks would want at least one of them in the deal, but they ain't getting the deal done with their salaries right now. So that's the part where it gets a little bit interesting, where it's like, okay, maybe you got to put Hartenstein and Caruso in the deal to make it happen, and it's like, well, now I mean, it's still Giannis, but now you are trading 3 core pieces to get that one. And, they have so many draft picks, whatever. I don't think that really matters. But when you think about potentially having, whether it's because Shea's not going out. So it's Shea, Giannis. First of all, that's terrifying. Thinking about Shea and Giannis together.
I think you got to go Dort, Hartenstein, Jalen Williams, and a bunch of picks for Giannis. That's probably the deal that gets it done.
What if they said you have to make it Chet instead of Jalen?
No.
Right. This is kind of my point, right? Like it gets to this weird point where the Thunder are so good already. Chet might be all NBA this year. Chet's outplaying Wemby to start the season, although Wemby did have a 5x5 last night. So it's not as though Wemby's a slouch right now, but Chet has been amazing to start this season. And so it's fascinating to think about where Giannis could go. And they say Brooklyn, or they say that he would have interest in Brooklyn and in Miami. Brooklyn is just a picks package. There's nothing there for player whatever. Cam Johnson, get the fuck out of here. Like what are we talking about? Cam Thomas taking 900 shots a game? No, it's get out of here. So that's just a pick package. And then Miami, you're just basically you're just trying to redo the Dame package, I guess, or you're putting Jimmy Butler in and hoping that, hey, let's see if Jimmy, that would be the one thing about the deal getting done this year is Miami could do Jimmy, because whatever tension has been there with Jimmy Butler, they could put Jimmy Butler, and Jimmy has a player option. So it's not exactly like the Bucks are thrilled about that, but it does line up salary wise, just 1-for-1 with Giannis and Jimmy. Not that it would be 1-for-1. There have to be a bunch of other stuff in there from Miami. I don't know how it makes sense, but that would be one thing that does kind of give a chance at it happening in season, but in season just feels too dramatic for a move like this.
Yeah, I'm looking at the Pacers as a team that I think would be really scary if Giannis was on that team. And in a package, salary wise, it would probably be Miles Turner. Nemhard would probably have to be in that, and Mathurin plus picks. Nemhard, Mathurin, Miles Turner, and a shit ton of picks. Like maybe the conversation gets started there, and they have to add some other shit. But I guess you throw Jarris Walker in there too.
Yeah.
The Pacers have their own first round pick this year. They have a few second round picks from Charlotte and Miami. They don't have a first round pick in 2026. So there's just like, I don't know if they would have the draft capital, but in terms of like fit in the pace with which they play, can you imagine Giannis on that Pacers team, just them getting up and down the court? That would be freaking terrifying.
That would be an interesting fit. Yeah, that's a good. Another one I was just kind of looking at here. What about Dallas? Just pairing him with Luka, right? That's going to have to be a separation of Kyrie. PJ's Washington's definitely got to go in that trade. I don't know if Derek Lively would be the big piece that would definitely have to go out in that trade for sure. That's another interesting fit, right? Just like Luka's kind of. I mean, once again though, this feels like, oh, we thought Dame and Giannis was going to be this world-changing pick and roll fit, and I mean, the numbers back it up that it's good, but the team hasn't really gotten that much better. Now, once again, this is kind of a debate you and I were having, or not a debate, we were talking about the other day with like LaMelo and Luka. Like, yeah, they might not be great defenders. They're still 6'7", 6'6", whatever they are, right? And so you pair that length, and then you have, other guys around that can give you length and spacing, and that's a terrifying combo. You have two of the top 5 guys in the league at that. So, I mean, there's not going to be any shortage of suitors for Giannis, but it will be interesting to see what that looks like. But I don't know. Do you think there's any chance that this would happen in season? This feels like an off-season move.
I mean, if they're, 10 games under 500 around the trade deadline, I could see it happening for sure. They don't look good. They don't look good.
They don't look good. Like we said, they've got a tough schedule before. They play the Celtics again here on November 10th, and they still got games against the Cavs, 2 games against the Cavs, and a game against the Knicks before that happens, with a game against the Jazz in the middle. So 4 not easy, or at least 3 out of the 4 not
When's
easy
Middleton
games
come back?
coming up here. No one knows, dude. That's the whole thing.
Okay.
No one knows. There's no timetable on Chris Middleton. It's a massive mystery as to what is going to happen with Middleton. And, when he comes back, who is he? Is he the guy that they have to play 20 minutes a night? Because that's not going to get it done. Like, that's not going to help them. And, he's already deprecated a little bit on the defensive end, but his offensive spacing is at least going to help them. And, once again, he's 6'7". So having more length out there would at least help them defensively. The Bucks are in a tough spot, man. It is a tough spot for the Bucks to be in. So we'll keep an eye on that. But anytime those rumors start to get going, usually when the smoke for a guy like this is out there, that means there's usually fire somewhere behind it, whether it will be this year or into the offseason. We'll have to see. But yeah, not looking good for the Bucks. Dude, some other devastating news in the Eastern Conference. I don't know if you saw Paolo out 4 to 6 weeks, going to be reevaluated. Just devastated, man. I love, I've talked about Paolo a couple times already, from before the season into, his 50-point game he had the other night, followed that up with another massive game right after. That just sucks. That sucks. Magic are a fun young team, and Paolo seemingly was ready to take a pretty big leap, and now he's going to be out for a little bit. So injuries, they are what they are, man, but they really do suck at times. So any other final thoughts here, Greg, before we get on out of here on this Friday morning?
Yeah, just quick shout to our guy Ray Sean Buchanan, former Crow-worthy partner. Right. Shout out to Crow-worthy.
Missing the Point.
Yeah, Missing the Point podcast. Make sure you guys go check them out. They've got full coverage of Boston sports, so they don't just talk about the Celtics like us. So they did the most recent episode for them. Looks like it dropped 10 hours ago. I might have to go listen to that. NFL Week 9 power rankings, cross-off teams, and Patriots rebounds. So shout out to Missing the Point for being the homies. And then for you, 2 podcasts in a row, you've used the word deprecated. And I just want to know what you think this word means.
Yeah, like not working the same anymore, like no longer working at its peak and getting worse.
Okay, that's not what it means.
Okay,
I think you mean depreciated.
Maybe that's what I'm looking for.
Just
maybe
missing the eye.
So it's deprecated, just like it no longer works at all, I guess. Or
no. So like think of if you're self-deprecating, you're like expressing disapproval of yourself. So deprecating just means to like express disapproval.
I mean, I'm sure Chris Middleton's doing that as well. Like, I think he's also very disapproving of all his injury histories and lack of availability. So I don't know if I'm entirely wrong, but yeah, no, I get your point. This is why it's good to have an English teacher on the podcast.
Yeah, no, you listen to Real Ones, right?
Every once in a while, not consistently.
Okay,
sometimes
they had this one episode before Logan's on paternity leave right now, and Logan kept saying the word where he kept saying continuity. And they were like, wait, we heard the producer Kerm came on and he was like, wait, I gotta ask you, Logan, what are you trying to say? You say continuity, and he's like, are you trying to say continuity?
Yeah, that was unbelievable. I happened to just tune into that one. That was unreal. Shout out to Kerm, was a UMass alum. So shout out to Kerm. Dude, that was hilarious. That was an unbelievable
They went like
segment.
5 minutes, and Logan was like, I can't even talk anymore. Like, I don't even know what words are now.
Hey, listen, for all you out there that think it's easy speaking into a mic, even when you're at your home base, sometimes you're trying to find the right words.
It's hard.
It escapes you sometimes, and you try to go with what you think is best. And it's the old, public speaking motto, right? Just keep going. Even if you think you might be wrong, if you weren't positive, just keep going and hope nobody calls you out. But then what they do, you got to acknowledge it. Like, I don't know, man. I was in my head trying to think of the right word, and sometimes you're just a little bit off. It happens.
It's always potent. It's always tangent, Will.
That's right. That's a classic throwback right there. But that'll do it for this episode of Green with Envy. We appreciate you guys rocking with us here. Little coffee and C's to get your Friday started. Once again, download the Bleacher Report app. Greg and I will be live on Saturday night following the second of 2 back-to-backs here in Charlotte, Friday and Saturday night, checking in with old friends Charles Lee, Grant Williams, see how LaMelo Ball and the crew are doing. LaMelo been balling out this year, so I'm excited to see what that looks like for the Celtics. We will have a recap of the Saturday night game. We'll talk about both games on that Bleacher Report stream, so come rock with us. Otherwise, we will be back next week. We'll have some more content for you guys, probably Sunday, Monday. We'll have a podcast for you, and then I'll be off for about a week or so. So we'll have some stuff to backfill that in here. So don't worry, guys. We'll have you covered. Even when one of us is out, we make sure to get you guys the content you need. So appreciate you guys rocking with us. Greg, any final thoughts here before we send it out to some BSO?
Don't boo. Vote.
There it is. Shout out to you guys. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Missed free throw. Horford the rebound. Here's Pritchard. He loves these. Puts it up half court of the buzzer.
Every time I get this high, I lose my mind. It don't take much no more until I hit the floor. Every time I get this high, it's you I find. It don't take much no more until I'm at your door.
I'm coming to my core, baby. What can I say? You got me on the floor, you know I came to play. I know I shouldn't, but you seem to take my pain away. And every time I score, Jason Tatum fade away. I close my eyes and I'm floating your river. I call to see if you open, you know I hope you deliver. Every time you getting close, I still